Hello, this is Nikhil Ghadge. I'm a software architect in a company called Okta.Inc. And I work for Identity Cloud. This research review paper is about best practices for governance and administration. So how do you enhance your identity management? So let's quickly go through the slides. So let's have a quick introduction, right? See, identity management is an essential component, especially in the current times when everything has become digital and the risk getting breached or accessed by unauthorized people has increased. More is reliance on these digital platforms for communication, financial dealings, and storage for personal data. So there is a need for robust practice in identity management not seen before. This study aims at identifying the best practices for governance and administration in an effort to strengthen the identity management system, focusing on a security privacy while ensuring that usability is extended to everyone who interacts with it. So, identity management is probably the essential element of cybersecurity, encompassing processes, technology, and policies used to identify, authenticate, and authorize and manage the digital identities on an organizational level. The history of identity management can be traced back to the beginning of computer system when we required to have a user authentication for access control. Now with the technological advancements came increase the complexity even in the basic identity management system, including the adoption of a single sign-on, role-based access control, biometric authentication, and so forth. Inspired by the proliferation of a cloud computing and mobile devices, now the identity management is more crucial than ever and for protecting sensitive information and preventing the data breaches. As organizations grapple with managing identities across various platforms and devices, best practices for governments and administration is very essential. So the purpose of this study is the authentication and analysis, identification analysis of best practices for governance and administrative functions to enhance the management of identity in organization. Identity management is becoming very complex nowadays, given the increasing number of digital channels and the concurrent danger in the cyber risk. By conducting a thorough investigation of existing strategies, what's out there in the market, the framework, the research aims to provide the insight into the methodologies organizations can use effectively and securely manage their identities. So ensuring the confidentiality, integrity, and accessibility of their data. Contributing to the existing body of knowledge, this study will also identify the major challenges and offer actionable recommendation to improve the identity management practices. So what is the identity management, right? Let's try to understand what's the identity management. So it's a crucial part of running in any organization, as you know. It focuses on tracking user identities within the systems and managing their access to various resources. There are a few key pieces to this puzzle that need to be looked at closely. For an example, authentication, authorization, and accountability. What is authentication, right? Authentication is how you verify the users and who are they. Uh, Verify the users that users are who they are, what they say. Authorization involves determining what each user is permitted to access the based on their roles or a responsibility within the given organization. Whereas the accountability means making sure you can trace and audit each action taken by each user. So how the organization beef up their identity management game? Implementing multi-factor authentication is a great start, right? This makes it harder for unauthorized users to slip through the cracks. Role-based access control is also the key. It ensures the users only have access to the key absolutely need to their job. And keeping, excuse me, this makes it harder for another to slip through the crack. And keeping a constant eye on a user activity can help catch any suspicious behavior early on. Identity management is a complex piece with a lot of moving parts. At its core, it involves identifying users within the system or an organization and ensuring they only have access to the resources they are authorized to use. It's not just about handing out a username and password, right? This is a lot more than that. You got to think about things like attributes and role each person has and what kind of a privilege and responsibilities come with those. It's about defining who can do what within the specific context. Identity management is an ongoing process, not just one thing of establishing and managing or maintaining the digital identity. and making sure the right policies and procedures are in place to keep everything in check. One of the biggest headache in the identity management industry is getting the different systems and platform to play nicely together. Companies often use a bunch of different applications tool to handle the identity data, which can lead to an information getting soiled off and fragmented approach to identity governance. This lack of unity can cause all sort of problems, right? Like inconsistency, redundancy, holes in our organizational security. To make matter worse, actually, the companies are more and more towards the cloud service and mobile apps. The whole identity landscape becomes even more complex. It's a real challenge to make sure everything integrates smoothly and works together seamlessly. This is just highlights how important it is to find identity management solution that can bring all these different systems together and streamline the whole process and managing identities. Organizations have to navigate through a minefield of evolving cyber threats, compliance requirements, and user expectations, all of which impact how identity data is collected, processed, and protected. Emerging technologies such as biometrics, blockchain, IoT present new opportunities to enhance security and improve user experience. Identity management becoming increasingly complex and interconnected issue that modern organizations simply can't afford to ignore. It's absolutely critical for keeping sensitive data safe, stay compliant with the regulation, and protecting the company from all kinds of cyber threats. A robust identity management system can greatly streamline access control, ensure users are accurately authenticated, and monitor for any unusual, unauthorized activities. So it's about understanding of what is identity management, how it is important, what are the different verticals in an identity management systems, right? Let's talk about the best practices for your identity governance, right? And on this slide, basically, we're going to talk about uh, what are the best practices currently available out in the market, and which organization can adopt and I try to implement them. Most importantly, use is a RBAC, which we call the role-based access control. Abbreviation is RBAC. Is widely used method for managing access to resources within an organization. The core idea behind the RBAC is assigning role to users based on their job and function and responsibility, right? Like a individual contributor versus a manager versus a VP or so depending on their role and their job function and your responsibilities, you get a different set of accesses. This structured approach makes access control much more scalable and manageable compared to the individually assigning permissions to each user. The key benefit of RPAC is the ability to quickly grant or revoke permissions through the role assignments. As I said, like it's a role-based assignment, so easily you can define that, hey, this particular executive roles need this type of an assignment, whereas the individual contributor needs a different type of. So it's easy to add or revoke the assignment. If an employee changes roles or leaves the organization, updating those accesses is simply changing their role. This helps in mitigating the risk of unauthorized access by ensuring permissions are kept up to date. RBAC also allows organization to more effectively implement the principle of least privilege, which by using RBAC, users are granted only the permission necessary to perform their job duties and no more. This approach minimizes the potential damage that can be occur if an account is compromised. As an attacker, you will have access to limited set of resources. Now, the organizations today face a constant struggle of maintaining continuous monitoring and compliance, right? So let's talk about monitoring and compliance. In the face of ever-evolving security threats and regulatory requirements, having a robust identity governance framework in place is critical as it enables organizations to constantly monitor and control user access and their privileges. By regularly reviewing and adjusting the access controls, organization can ensure that only uh, authorized individuals have access to the sensitive data and resources. This proactive approach not only enhances the security, but also demonstrates the commitment to complying with the industry standards and regulations. Let's talk about what is ILM, right? That's another key based practice in the identity governance. It's nothing but a identity lifecycle management. It's a critical component of an identity framework. It encompasses the entire life cycle of a user's identity within an organization, starting with the initial creation and a provision of a user account continuing through the ongoing management and concluding with the user's departure from the organization. So it's the complete life cycle from creation until deactivation or removing the user from your system. By automating these tasks such as onboarding, offboarding, and access control, organizations can significantly reduce the risk of unauthorized access to sensitive information and a streamline time-consuming administration task. Uh, now, let's talk about the next bullet point, which is integration of the identity governance in IT infrastructure. So incorporating this robust identity governance into organization IT infrastructure has become today's key component for the digital landscape. Identity governance encompasses the policies, controls, technologies required to effectively manage and secure digital identities within the corporate environment. By seamlessly integrating identity governance practices within their IT system, companies can easily establish a streamlined framework for overseeing the user access, entitlements, and privileges. This strategic alignment ensures the only authorized individual can access the sensitive information and critical resources, significantly mitigating the risk associated with unauthorized access and potential security breach. Moving on to the next slide, right? Let's talk about the effective administration of an identity government. In the slides, we're going to talk about the provisioning and deprovisioning process, which we touched base in the previous slide during the identity lifecycle management, how to do password management, single sign solution, and the data encryption and a protection measure. So establishing a robust governance framework and protocol lies at the heart of the effective identity system management. Clearly defined roles and responsibility within the organization are crucial for ensuring accountability and transparency in identity management processes. This involves specifying permissions, access control, and segregation of duty to prevent the unauthorized access and mitigate the inside threats. Regular audits and monitoring mechanism play a crucial role to detecting anomalies and compliance issues, enabling a swift remediation. When it comes to identity management systems within the organization, we must closely examine the process involved in user provisioning and deprovisioning. These are critical components that ensure secure and well-organized access to organizational resource. So onboarding and offboarding, which like provisioning and deprovisioning is very critical in a given organization so that you make sure that once the user changes the role or leaves the organization, he or she does not have unauthorized access to internal system or any other cloud-based application, what he or she is not supposed to have an access once she or he leaves the organization. So it's very critical in order to the effective administration. So implementing robust password management is definitely a crucial component. Organization must enforce stringent password and policies that mandate the use of complex password, regular password changes, multi-factor authentication. Research has shown that weak and easily guessable passwords are still prevalent among users, highlighting the necessity of educating individuals for a best practice for creating a secured password. Password managers play a valuable role. In this case, it is imperative for organizations to regularly review and update their password management strategies to stay ahead of emerging threats and vulnerabilities. Many places you have seen, right? Like you need to have password of a certain length, a combination of certain characters. So that those are some of the best practices and effective administration for identity system. Single sign-on is another thing which is emerging, and it's a game changer in enhancing security while improving the user experience across the multiple systems. This approach not only enhances the usability of end user, but also reduces the risk of security breaches and the password fatigues, right? Instead of typing password on 10 different applications when you log in, single sign-on will help you just to log into a main service. And after that, you just bounce between different applications. So it's much easier, much convenient. Implementing the SSO, companies can enforce consistent security policies and ensure compliance with the regulatory requirement. Furthermore, SSO can drive productivity by eliminating the need of users to repeatedly log in different systems. As I said, right, you don't have to key in your password when you go to the different system. The SSO will make sure that, hey, you are already authorized once and do the handshake and you'll just log in. While SSO offers numerous advantages, it is important to acknowledge that its implementation requires careful planning and consideration of an organization's unique needs. A well-executed SSO strategy can provide a secure and seamless user experience, while a poorly implemented one may introduce a risk and a complexity. So this is all introduction and the research work, what exactly available in the market. So based on this, we created a questionnaire which is shared across multiple domain and a different uh, areas. And uh, I don't have a snapshot of a actual questionnaire, but the questionnaire varies from what type of a practice do you have for identity governance? Do you have a separate role for managing the identities versus the IT infrastructure? What's the size of a company? And these are the survey results which we collected across, like, hey, average number of board meetings per year in order to discuss some of the identity governance and things related to identity management. A percentage of companies where we have a risk management committee as a separate committee rather than just part of an IT department. So these are the survey results. We also looked at the distribution of industry and sector, like what are their scores, how are the governance and the compliance being distributed across these different domains, including healthcare, technology, retail, and multiple of those. The most important conclusion is, even though we know identity is critical, there are still individual organization, they are not fully adopting the right identity management and governance policies. And that's what we got to know with this survey. So implementing best practices for governance and administration within the identity governance is crucial for the enhancing security. And as I said, we have found that many places there are a simple misses or loopholes in the given organization. Mitigating the risks related to the identity theft, data breaches, inside threats is definitely the key, where we can having a better identity governance can handle that. We need to have a continuous evaluation and adoption of an identity management practices to address the evolving security threats and a technological advancement. We cannot continue doing what we have been practicing for last 10 years or 15 years, right? As everything is evolving, as I said, like if devices becoming a common thing, IoT, we need to evolve as the security threats and the technology advancements are evolving over a period of time. Proactive approach to identity management is strengthen the overall security posture. So these are some of our conclusions by the research review work we did within existing system, and when we got a feedback on our question. So that's the presentation. Thank you.